Policy Center event. It's the first international event, and we're happy that you were able to join us on a Sunday evening. We have two distinguished guests, and I'd like to introduce to you very briefly. Our first speaker is Mrs. Zeynep Bodur Okyay. She's chairman of the board and CEO of Kale Grubu. She's vice president of the board of directors of the Economic Development Foundation, İKV. She's also a member of the executive board of the Foreign Economic Relations Board, DEİK. She's also chairwoman of the Turkish-Italian Business Council. And she has been heavily involved in Turkey-EU affairs. She had also a task force in DEİK. So we're very happy to have her here this evening. Our second speaker is coming from afar. He's a member of the European Parliament since 1979, Mr. Nacho Sánchez Amor. Sorry. He's also a member of the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. He was also a member of the Spanish delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE. So he's no stranger of Turkey because he led short-term missions to elections in Turkey. The first one was the 2015 general election and the 2018 presidential election. He's also a member of the Turkey-EU Joint Parliamentary Committee and has the unenviable task of being the rapporteur for Turkey. He came to Turkey just before the COVID lockdown last year, and we hope to be benefiting from his wisdom. Now, to let you know how we will proceed, I will ask 3 questions each to our speakers, one after the other, of course. And after that, we'll open the floor to questions from the audience, which will be done in a written way. So let me start. Zeynep Hanım, we just had the European Council meeting last week, in which it seems that the latest détente policy of the Turkish foreign policy has made some inroads, in which we can now say that the version is a little bit softer. But yet again, there are some points in which, of course, we have to be careful. There's some opening by the EU with regard to the customs union and some other issues. There's also some warnings, a general warning about that Turkey has to be careful about what it does until June. And of course, with regard to the customs union, it has said that it has to first get rid of the irritants. And secondly, it has to use the customs union to all the members of the EU. So my first question is, do you think we can be able to proceed on the customs union in the way we wanted? Because we have always asked for the customs union to be modernized. Finally, the EU has said yes, but with a lot of conditions. So what do you think that we can do in the future?
First of all, Mr. Ambassador, let me start by thanking yourself and Ambassador Ömer Orhan for their kind invitation, and obviously Mr. Sánchez Amor for always emphasizing the importance of close relations and committing to the accession perspective, and our participants for sparing their Sunday time to be with us today. And it is my pleasure to be here today and to take part in this timely discussion accompanied by the EU Summit. As you emphasized, it's needless to say EU-Turkey relations have been on the agenda for a long time. And as someone who experienced Turkey's journey with the EU from the 1990s, I can say much has been achieved, and yet much remains in our wishes. So indeed, the customs union has greatly benefited both partners and businesses in Turkey, who accumulated great experience in doing business with the EU, stands as one of the central pillars in furthering the relations and envisaging a closer alignment between the EU and Turkey. So following the initiatives such as the Green Deal, digitalization, farm to fork, and many more, I feel very excited, and my excitement stems from seeing the potential. I applaud the EU also for setting strong ambitions toward ensuring sustainable development and acknowledging the resilience. And this motivates me to do the same also in our country and cooperate further with those who strive for a green economy, a secure supply chain, and a system that delivers. Therefore, I know the more we talk, open space for dialogue and commit to one another, nothing would prevent our common desire in furthering the accession process. So I see the accession process as the root, the backbone of Turkey and EU relations. Without this recognition, any effort is taken out of the context, just as the way forward needs to be structured within this context. So I emphasize in every meeting that I take part in, I reaffirm the need to further this process and from positive contributing to the public discourse to leading bilateral investment programs such as, for example, JETCO processes and others. So this is really important, first of all. And for example, this year also I've been selected as a member of this year B20, and I also follow Business Europe agenda as well. So in G20, for example, the motto for 2021 is reshape the future, involve everyone, share and take action. It's very important in building the post-COVID-19 the world together. I believe we need a mind shift and a great I believe that we need a mind shift. In the context of our relations with the EU, this also great reset means we can no longer carry on as business as usual. So despite all the challenges, we as the Turkish business community know very well the importance of furthering the relations with the EU. And given the current trajectory, the best way of doing this would be the modernization of our customs union. So this is a very important agenda for the business community. As we stand, I believe we must prioritize creating a broader framework of cooperation between Turkey and the EU as a complement to the full accession process until the accession process is back on track. So, and this is shared by many EU businesses as well. We all want to deepen the economic relations, and we know the best way of doing this would be through a renewed customs union. As you mentioned, this week there was the European Council Summit in Brussels, and indeed we have examined with interest the language used in the summit related to the start of the customs union negotiations. We are hopeful that the necessary political will can be consolidated on both sides in the short term to allow for the start of these negotiations in the second semester of 2021. We very much hope that the EU Council can finally grant the much awaited mandate to the European Commission. And also we firmly believe that the Turkish government will address constructively the issue of also trade irritants, and particularly the departures from a common customs tariff with the view to firmly align Turkey with the common trade policy. From the customs union, which is in our agenda, this deal is in the interest of both parties, because new rules for dispute settlement will help resolve long-standing trade problems. The inclusion of services, e-commerce, and agriculture will ultimately increase bilateral trade and develop novel investment opportunities. And joint ventures in defense, construction, or the finance system will create new avenues of cooperation. So this will revive Turkey's process of harmonization, and this will have also spillover effect on governance and will inevitably bring Turkey more closer to the EU. The deepening of customs union can also, I believe, unlock economic and commercial benefits for both sides and provide a common framework for relations. So therefore, this is a very critical issue for us. because we also attach a great importance because we also follow the economic agenda of EU, and the inclusion of chapters related to the EU Green Deal and the digital agenda in the renewed custom union is very important for us. So I would like to stress that we are very much eager to work towards the EU Green Deal. And in regard to Green Deal agenda, also from Turkey, we believe that we contributed a lot. Since last year, we have organized many events and on the transition towards a greener economy. And as DEİK, for example, we are about to launch our detailed report on how the industry could align with the Green Deal. And in the same way, we have an ongoing project on the digitalization. So we saw that there's a lot of interest from SMEs that are from our members, and as well as startups, for example. I've seen a lot of interest in these two topics. So this shows also you know, how Turkish business is following the agenda in the EU. I hope that this will show also from the Commission's new agenda. You know, this will help us to you know, to open up a new avenue for Turkey. You know, to talk further in bilateral economic questions. So, yeah, area. So therefore, after the summit, I hope we can come back to the track on track again, and be able to talk on these exciting issues and try to open some new, let's say, chapters among Turkey and EU businesses, and so we are hopeful, but there is much to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can turn to Senor Sánchez now. Senor Sánchez, I mean, you've probably read the conclusions. It's mostly based on your compatriots, the High Representative Borrell's reports. The problem here is that there's a lot of, you know, some positive elements, definitely, but I've noticed that it's all based on the Eastern Mediterranean. In fact, it's under the rubric of Eastern Mediterranean. And it seems that, you know, the conditionality of proceeding is based on Turkey's continued behavior of not making any problems in that area. One thing that was amiss was that there was no mention of Turkey's candidacy. So my question to you is Turkey still a candidate? If you could unmute yourself, please.
Yes, this is the question, Ambassador. First, I would like to say you have to. I understand it's not easy. Of course, most of you are diplomats. You know very well the European Union, but for the rest of the people who are not familiar with the issue, the European Union has three main different institutions, and the approach to Turkey of every of these institutions is different, and you have to be aware of that. The Parliament is more keen and more attached to the accession process. That means the current situation on human rights and rule of law. The Commission is more or less the same, even having a more practical approach on economic issues and so on. And the Council is more focused on geopolitical issues. And you have to be aware of that. That means these are the conclusions of the European Union. But you have the report on Turkey from the Commission, and you are having mine, I'm the rapporteur, or the Parliament's report in 1 month and a half, more or less. And you could appreciate that the approaches are completely different. And this is not the problem sometimes I heard you raise in Turkey. The European Union is deeply divided. Sorry, guys, this is our nature. We are not a state. We are not a nation. We are a construction, very artificial. We are not following the same patterns the state have used for centuries. We are creating another creature. And what sometimes from Turkey do you read like deeply divisions is the normal functioning of the European Union. Into the Council, there are different approaches from different member states, and the approach of the Parliament is different from the approach of the Council. For us, for the Parliament, the fact that Turkey is a candidate country is the key issue. And sometimes it seems like a formality. Okay, but because the accession process is completely frozen, let's jump to another issue. No, this is not correct from our point of view, from the Parliament point of view. And for that reason, we usually criticize the Council, and I did it recently, because the Council is not endorsing the human rights and rule of law agenda. And we have been very critical from the Parliament. I have been very critical for the approach sidelining the issue of human rights and rule of law. Because the condition of Turkey of being a candidate country is a fact. We can avoid that. Of course, we know what is the current situation of the accession process, but the fact is you are a candidate country. What do you expect from a candidate country? To approach the values, the principle, and the interest gradually. We are not undermining your sovereignty, but the process is to approach. The problem is that Turkey is diverging from the last couple of years, or from more time if you analyze other things. Then, because the accession process is frozen, we are examining with more deep approach other folders, because our relationship is completely multifaceted, as the Borrell's paper explained and the Commission reports explain. There is a lot of issues we have to deal with, both parts, and because the accession process is frozen, we are moving to other things. I remember Zeynep, the first meeting we had with Sinan Ulgen and other guys in the beginning of my capacity as a rapporteur. You were, as a business community, you are focusing opening the custom union issue. What has been the position of the Parliament? Okay, let's open the custom union debate or discussion, but with some democratic conditionality. Why? Because the accession process is not functional to drift reforms into Turkey. And this is a key question I would like to raise to all of you. The accession process is a tool that allows us to mingle in the domestic issues in Turkey. It's our leverage to examine you as a country, because you are a candidate country. If not, we are not entitled. We could expel some opinions, but we are more engaged with you than other third countries. And this is our leverage. And the leverage is not functioning to drive to reforms. That always has been one of the aspects of the accession process. The accession process means it's a normative set. There are some benchmarks. You have to approach these benchmarks. This is not functioning. And for that reason, we are asking for some democratic conditionality in every other folder. That means custom unions and visa liberalization, even immigration, even being a more transactional relation. And I'm a politician. I have no problem with the transactional. The transactional things are my oxygen. I have not that approach. But because the accession process is not functional, and even it's a kind of cynical process. I have used this adjective in the past, because it's a kind of accession process that the end of this accession process is not the membership, is to stay as an eternal accession process, because that way apparently is functional for both sides. And nobody dares to say why we maintain this fiction of the accession process. Nobody asks that, because this is dangerous, because it's better for us, it's more functional to maintain the mirage of an accession process when both parts have doubts about the final goal of the accession process. For that reason, sometimes from the European Union, there are more interest or more accent or more close approach to other issues, because we know that the accession process is not functioning as the accession process was designed to function. But I have to warn you, the position of the Parliament is more close to examine Turkey on the issues of human rights and rule of law. And the Council is dealing with Turkey, I say that way. The Council, that's it, the member states in the Council are dealing with Turkey as if Turkey was not a candidate country. And the Parliament is dealing with Turkey as if Turkey was only a candidate country. And both ways, and both approaches are lacking some views. And for that reason, the accession process has not been mentioned in the Council. Normally, the Council is more keen to approach things on the geopolitical issue, even because the issue who triggered this quarrel is the Eastern Mediterranean policies, and this is not attached to the accession process. But I have to warn you, the report from the Parliament is completely addressed to the accession process functionality and the lack of reforms in Turkey.
Well, thank you very much for that clarification, because it's very confusing when we have three institutions. The Commission recognizes us as a candidate. You have said that the European Parliament also does so, but the Council doesn't. Well, at least we have 2-1. Now, if I can turn to Zeynep Hanım. Zeynep, I'd still like to go back to the Council conclusions. One promising aspect is that we have always asked for high-level dialogues to restart. And 5 years ago, when we had addressed this issue, we had high-level dialogues on the economy, transport, and energy. Now, in this latest conclusions, we are having different areas, such as public health, climate and counterterrorism, as well as regional issues. Now, what do you think of this? Do you think that we have now, we are not going to do any high-level discussions on political issues or economic issues? For example, Turkey has not been invited to, the foreign affairs Gimlik meetings for a long time. And I think that this is a matter of concern. So what do you think about this? Do you think this is a positive development or not as positive as it seems?
I believe that all in all, the incorporation of these important topics would be indispensable, of course, for the Turkish industry in order to deepen its ties with the European economy. Because we are, talking about the, accession process, etc. But although for us, for DEİK, we are much more interested in business side of the relations, because this is central for us. But we also see importance of other topics influencing the potential of our bilateral relations. However, the reinitiation of exploratory talks between Turkey and, for example, Greece has opened a real window of opportunity towards the de-escalation. Also, this is recognized by the EU. So I believe this is excellent. Also, the high-level talks are important because this gives us also an area where we really can contribute and as Turkey explain our position. So we really support as business community the Council Presidents and the Commission's possible visit to Turkey next month. So to pursue talks, and this recent, gives us a positive momentum vis-a-vis our relations. Of course, we as a business community, we get our strength from improvements in the investment and business environment. But of course, this has to be in line with the international standards, as Mr. Sánchez Amor told, and also, of course, we are as business community, would like to see more policy predictability, enhanced rule of law, and transparency and fair competition provisions. So these are, as part of it, comes with the package. So we are not closing our eyes to those issues, of course, because this is important for doing, for a well-functioning, business environment. Therefore, we saw also in the previous years the convergence with the EU acquis as part of the accession process, as, for example, served to very much for the business community's needs. For example, good governance, for example, is very crucial also for the business community to thrive. So therefore, these are important issues. Therefore, the business community is not only a beneficiary, but also a facilitator of this process. Therefore, we always encourage Turkish government not only to accelerate, but also materialize the reform agenda. So this is what we are trying to say. But we also believe in the need to separate business and politics, to allow us to set explicit and clear targets. So as a business community, we want to see actually what's our agenda, what's going to be the next. So for us, there are really crucial issues, as I mentioned, customs union, modernization, etc., because we need a well-functioning bilateral trade as well. So this is going to serve also for our counterparts in Europe. So therefore, we are much more focused on that side, but of course, we cannot neglect the importance of other issues. I also listened carefully to Sánchez Amor. Indeed, he has right in many issues, but however, in the last summit, there was hardly any mention of this, for example. This, I would like to ask why there was there is no mention about this candidate of Turkey's candidate country, and the agenda with Turkey was analyzed under the topic of Eastern Med, and not under candidacy process, for example. And also, I wonder, as a business person, why energizing the bilateral relations cannot be done via opening new chapters. For example, in some chapters, we are already stuck, for many years. So you are in the European Parliament. I really would like to ask you this question from, deep from my heart, that maybe you can enlighten us on why the Parliament is very divided also on Turkey issue. We understand that to be, in an accession process, puts on our shoulder different, let's say, we are not any third country to Europe. We understand that we have our responsibilities, but there are issues that sometimes really we are not. It's not easy for us also from the business community to understand, because business community here is doing enormous work to work towards the Commission's agenda, green agenda, and other issues, and we are trying to support the common goals. I think here the European Parliament's role in supporting candidate countries becomes very important. So therefore, we would like to work more closer with the EU as a business community, and maybe this will help also in the future to ease the relationship between Europe and Turkey. Therefore, as business, we are fully committed to Turkey's accession process because we see it as the backbone of Turkey's EU relations. But also we would like to see, more realistic and more approach for the current, under the current circumstances as well, some progress vis-a-vis some problems that we are facing, and this hopefully will benefit both sides, because we've seen so far, since the beginning of customs union, for example, both sides have benefited, EU side and Turkish side. And we became more competitive. We learned by this, harmonizing the acquis communautaire. We understood much better, how to do business with Europe, etc. So these are helping us as well as, benefit to European business counterparts. So while listening to you, this was a question that came into my mind, but I believe that the issues that you asked, Mr. Ambassador, are also important, of course, because everything comes with the package and we have to discuss everything. But from our side, with my capacity of being the coordinator, president of business councils in the DEİK, we focus more on the business side, and we are glad to see that also if there will be some opening in areas like energy, etc., common topic agenda, and where Turkey could participate more into the discussions, that will be great from our point of view. We always encourage that. But in the future, we would like to see really more interaction with the business community as well.
Thank you. Senor Sánchez, maybe you'd like to answer her, but I'll also like to ask you another question. When I read this council conclusions, I was a little bit confused again. Let me read you, let me phrase this. It says that we invite the Commission to explore how to strengthen cooperation with Turkey on people-to-people contacts and mobility. Now, if we did not have Borrell's report, I would not understand what this means, but I'm using it as a Rosetta Stone. This probably means that Turkey could participate in union programs and also with regard to visa exploration. But there's no mention about visa. Now, I understand that Turkey has to fulfill the remaining 6 criteria. It's been going on for 5 years and we haven't done our job yet. I want to ask you a hypothetical question. Let's say if the Commission agrees with regard to what we have done, we fulfill this remaining 6 criteria, and the Council, for some reason, accepts it as well. What would the European Parliament do? Because of, you just mentioned how divided it is with regard to Turkey. Do you think that the European Parliament would be able to vote yes for visa liberalization for Turkey if Turkey fulfills all the criteria?
Of course, as we did in other countries. The question is the benchmark. Well, the question is only to meet the merchant. For us, it's really upsetting to hear every week that we didn't abide in the migration deal of the year 16. This is really upsetting for for 2 main reasons, because it's not true that we didn't spend the money. The money has been spent and contracted entirely, and we have to hear, no, Europe is not abiding, Europe is not paying. And why don't we have the liberalization if they commit to have a visa deal because the fact of the signature of the deal of migration? This is not true. This is not true, and I'm afraid the public opinion in Turkey is continuously hearing that kind of things, and it's not true. In the migration deal in the year 16, we offered to open the visa liberalization process with the same condition that it had in the past. 6 or 7 benchmarks are not being met, and even had not been tried to be met, because there were no intention for the from the ruling party to conduct or to send to the parliament this package on anti-terror law, on data protection, and police and corruption and so on. And I think if Turkey delivers the reforms committed, we are saying yes, as we did in the past with other countries. But the question is, sometimes they say no, because we agreed on the migration, you have to deliver the visa liberalization. And Borrell's papers repeat the visa liberalization had a conditionality on 6 or 7 benchmarks that are not met and are not even tried to be met. But the parliament, I come to the parliament because you asked and because Zeynep. The problem of the parliament and the problem of the European Union as a whole is a general environment of complete lack of trust. We have to rebuild the trust in general. We have to be reliable to each other. We have to be predictable from the other side. I'm talking about both sides. I'm not talking just towards Turkey. And we have to rebuild the trust. That this is the ground in which we could build something in every of the issues we have currently open. But the first is to rebuild the trust. One thing related is the anti-European rhetoric that has been very common in the past years. It's not easy to have a positive approach if you are hearing continuously that the European Union is a colonial power and Greece is a colony. Turkey does really need to use this rhetoric to stand for their theoretical rights. To say I need more territorial sea, we have to reshape the borders in the East Mediterranean. It's not. There is no equity in the fact that I have only a narrow strip of my shore. It's really needed to talk about colonial powers and colonies, because this is a rhetoric in which is very, very easy to be used by the anti-Turkish movement in Europe. And I'm come to the parliament. In the parliament, there are people that for which there is no Turkey. Turkey, it doesn't exist. It's about Erdogan. There is no country. It's only about the person. And the rationale of these people, more keen to be in the extreme left, is about Erdogan. We don't want to deal about migration because it is Erdogan. And there is no country behind the shadow of the president. And this is a complete mistake. On the other side, there is a small minority that is simply Islamophobic. It's the extreme right, is Islamophobic. But this extreme part of the parliament dealing with Turkey are very, very a minor part of the parliament, a few minorities. On the center, there is the big players in the parliament. And the big players in the parliament, the only division we have is the critical and the hypercritical. Why? Because our approach is more linked to the human rights and rule of law and accession process. Because this is our task in the European Union. We have to take care of the values. Because the government are more keen to try a real politic thing, but we have to be the guardian of the values. And we think this is our role. And for that reason, we always push the Council to introduce the point of view of the human rights and rule of law in any relation with Turkey. And we are upset if the Council is not delivering in that part. And if the country is not mentioning what happened with the Istanbul Convention or what happened recently with the HDP or that kind of thing, we are upset because this is our role into the European Union. And as Zeynep rightly said, no, I have to take care about my business point of view. We try not to be, business is not politics. But did you remember what was the rationale of Volkswagen to decide not to invest in Turkey? It was anything related to the Turkish lira, anything related to the transparency. No, Volkswagen decided not to invest in Turkey because the rule of law. And for that reason, I think to regain the trust, not only from the European Union, from the European companies, from the European banks, from the European public opinion, we do really want to have some results, practical results, on the dossier of human rights and rule of law. Because if we are receiving the news we received last week on the Mr. Gergerlioglu, HDP, another indictment and condemned on the Mirtas, and finally the cherry in the cake, the withdrawal to the Istanbul Convention, there is no psychological ground to advance, because the parliament is pushing the council to say, did you notice that hours after your video call with Mr. Erdogan, in which you proposed to Turkey a positive agenda, only hours after this video call, Mr. Erdogan decided to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention? How could you assess how the public opinion in Europe is going to receive that news? This is the problem. We have to regain trust, and for regain trust, for the parliament, it's completely key issue to see facts, to see real reforms, not to receive another 10th action plans if at the end the prosecutors are acting as they act lately in your judiciary. What do we know is to see the sincerity of the Human Rights Action Plan and to conduct reforms. Because if not, there is always a problem. Even if the European Council wants to sideline these pungent issues and try to focus on geopolitical issues, on Cyprus, on East Med, on the drillings, even if they try to do, they can turn a blind eye to this ground of the human rights and rule of law. And the parliament is always tried to remind other institutions that this is a key question in our relation with any candidate or even with any neighbor. This is the problem, Zeynep and Ambassador. We have to regain trust as a general ground to build in every dossier. In one dossier could be more speedy, in other could be more slow, but the key issue is we have to result reliable for the other and predictable for the other. And what we assess from the late current trends in Turkey is not reliable and not predictable. And for that reason, things happen like it happened lately. But I'm open to try to have some hope, because the narrative changed, because there are some offers on the table, and because I think at least there is a momentum we have to use to try to overcome these difficulties and to be more kind to our say, because it's not easy to believe that you change from, say, European Union is crumbling. It's like a Putin mimic rhetoric. European Union is always scrambling. I heard from Putin long time ago, the European Union is always on the verge of dissolve. And we have 27 countries, and we have a common currency, and we have a common policy, and we have an excellent market. Okay, we can live with that. But what do we really know is to regain trust. And to regain trust, we have to be reliable and predictable to the others.
Well, thank you. Fortunately, the rhetoric has gone down for the last 2 or 3 months. As you mentioned about certain trust issues, if I can show you that the picture is a little bit mixed. If we go to the 18th of March agreement made 5 years ago, it is true that the European Union has finally delivered the 3+3. Very slow, but they have delivered it, and I think the projects have now been approved. Turkey has delivered also. The numbers crossing over from Turkey to Greece and onwards has diminished immediately. But there are other issues that are not totally, resolved. We mentioned the visa issues. Of course, Turkey has to fulfill the remaining 6 benchmarks. But we mentioned the customs union. The customs union is a commercial issue, trade issue, and that should not have been blocked anyway. Secondly, voluntary resettlements. That hasn't started yet. Borrell's report has mentioned that, for example. there were some standard operating benchmarks already then presented or prepared by the Commission, and the Council has not taken that up. This is something important for Turkey. And lastly, but most crucially, the accession process. That is also being held hostage for political reasons. So the picture is a little bit mixed. And my last questions to both of you is actually what you mentioned, trust. Because both sides don't trust each other anymore. This is something that's quite evident. And when you look at Turkish-EU relations, which spans for about 6 decades, both sides have, good arguments for this, unfortunately. Therefore, how do we build up trust again? How do you see the next 5 or 10 years in our relationship? So, Mr. Sánchez, Senor Sánchez, I'd like to start with you this time. How do you think we can proceed? How do you think we can actually make this relationship work? As you know, the title of our meeting today is Reconciliation. How do we reconciliate? What do you think we should do? Both sides, not just Turkey, but regarding EU as well.
Yeah.
Let me start with you.
Yeah, I think one key issue to try to regain trust on the side of the accession process, the approaching of values and societies, is a question I always repeat to my Turkish friends, because sometimes they say we have no incentives to push reforms, and I say, sorry, incentives to become a mature democracy? This for me is that's clear. Are you only conducting reforms in the sense of have a real mature democracy only because you're a candidate country, or this is a societal decision? We want to be a mature democracy, and then eventually we could go to the European Union or not. Switzerland is not in the European Union. The question of the incentives for me is perverse, because a society, it doesn't need incentives to try to become a better society, a democratic society. And this is a question we have to assess from the very beginning. And this is on you. This is on Turkish citizens. You have to decide what kind of political system you want. I'm not talking about presidential or parliamentary. I'm talking about a real mature democracy or not. And this is on you. This is not on us. We can substitute the political will of the ruling elites or the people of Turkey to become a democracy. And other thing subsequent is the accession process. But what we don't understand is we are only conducting reforms if we are having, I don't know, custom union facilities. This is a thing not easy to understand. For the future, of course, the first thing is to de-escalate the tension. And I think I insist on that. It's very important to de-escalate the public rhetoric on both parts. The public rhetoric has to be careful, friendly. It's not needed to use an aggressive rhetoric to defend your positions, and this on both sides we have to be aware. Second, we have to choose very carefully in which dossiers are we working in the next future in the sense of regain trust. And I think the custom union probably is the more clear to us. It's a win-win solution. We have to solve some issues about the current system. But I think, and the Parliament and my colleagues think the dossier more useful to try to regain trust is custom unions. Of course, there is the big question of the Eastern Mediterranean and how to address the issue. I think Turkey has to insist in his rights. I think it's easiest if you adhere to the UNCLOS, to the law of seas, but even not having, I think you have to insist in your rationale, in the equity rationale. I think it's completely okay that you put the equity into the table. And on the other side, we count on NATO to try to create some grounds to create trust with Greece. And the only thing, in my personal view, it's dangerous to enter without a proper preparation with Cyprus, because Cyprus is the real divisive things among us from the very beginning, from the accession of Cyprus to the European Union, and we have to be very careful on that, because we all know that our positions our respective positions are very different. And we have to choose carefully dossiers in which we have more possibilities to reach an agreement and then to regain trust. And I think we have to work, as the Council said wisely, in custom unions. And from my perspective, I think it's very important that to regain trust in general, Turkey decide to conduct political reforms, to have a more a more close approach to human rights and rule of law in the sense of the European values. These are my advice for the rest. Try to avoid the very difficult issues in which we are not having an agreement, and to choose carefully in which folder we can have an agreement, and then to start regaining through. Of course, I think migration has been the more functional part of our relation in the past years. Despite and even knowing what you say, Ambassador, that there are difficulties on both parts, the migration deal has been the more functional and normalized relation we had in this past. Despite the problems in the resettlement, despite the problem in the how to manage the money spent in Turkey, but this has been a more, let's say, functional way. It's transactional, it's fragile if you want, but it functions. For the key issues, it functions. And then the Parliament, who is completely critical with many developments in Turkey, approved last summer an extension of the money for two main programs in the money coming from the to the refugees. That means the Parliament is not a blind institution. The Parliament differentiates very well the needs of the refugees and the money we have to spend in Turkey than with to the other quarrels we have in the field of human rights and rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you. Zeynep, what do you think? I mean, what do you think that both sides should do to regain trust? Do you agree with Senor Sánchez about his assessment, or do you have any other ideas?
Thank you for the question. Regaining trust is important. This is very obvious. If there is no trust, of course, nothing we can achieve. But I don't agree completely on the point that both sides have lost trust in each other. I don't totally believe in that. When we talk about the European Union, it's not just about how the European Council decided today or what the Commission is planning to do in 2 months. The European Union is about values and the people who it represents, which was also mentioned by Mr. Amor. But and after Brexit, the EU itself is going through a critical process in regaining trust. So it's not only a problem vis-a-vis Turkey and Europe, but also among, let's say, European partners. So this is how we witness from far. And the place of Turkey here is very critical. So let me explain maybe how I see the future. For example, the foundation of our future engagement should be the same as the foundation of its past, Turkey's accession to the EU. So Turkey's EU membership goal cannot be disregarded under any circumstances. And you are right, we have to build trust to protect and realize this goal. Perhaps the best way to regain trust in the current situation is to seek trust on issues that benefit both parties. As mentioned also by Mr. Amor, customs union, Green Deal, and digitalization are important opportunities in this regard. So we always say that we need a positive agenda, and those issues really will help us to regain the momentum and to create this positive agenda. We can build on these to utilize the trust we built to handle more heavily contested issues. And however, relations should not be transactional. This is really having from our side also is very difficult to understand, meaning not just based on, for example, migration or other issues that only the EU has primary interest in. So this has also a mirror effect from our side. Then also our relations towards vis-a-vis European Union becomes also transactional. So in this way, there is no win-win for both sides. So therefore, I believe that the accession process, etc., has to be kept always as a stick, because otherwise, the arguments will not help us to find a common ground. So I say, let's remember the times back in 2004, for example. Everyone in Turkey from all political parts were very excited, and this can be achieved again if the European Union shows some willingness. So having said that, and having made statements on the future, I would like to remind also everyone that the EU is also changing. I know from Brussels circles, when we met first with Mr. Amor, we had a very large tour among institutions in Brussels, and we saw very short-sighted vision vis-a-vis Turkey. So everybody was telling us that, we should be more pragmatic, we should, act much quicker. So nobody mentioned, for example, to us about accession and Turkey's, importance within this process. But everybody talked about when we, for example, told them that we were very concerned lately signed FTAs, for example. The vision was very much short-sighted, for example. So this had also a negative effect from our side. So therefore, we come up to a conclusion that EU also is moving towards a change in the future. So there were plans, for example, of organizing a conference on the future of Europe, which we were very hopeful as a business community, because we thought that there could be some deeper discussions, and maybe we could be back on track again. But however, due to the pandemic, this couldn't take place. However, from the Commission President von der Leyen agenda, we can say the following: the future of EU is about sustainable development. Now we understand, we read these lines, and it's about digital economy and about having the autonomy to pursue the interest of the EU. So these are important issues. So I see, at least from now on, maybe both sides has to think over and try to become more closer and try to understand each other much better. I hear what Mr. Sánchez is saying, that there are many skeptics in the EU, and certainly there are those who are against Turkey. Of course, these are we understand, we hear this, but we have to do our best, to build the trust. Any relations, personal business relations or relations like this between countries and between treaties cannot go forward without trust. So therefore, I totally believe, so we should look to our agenda. We should select the ones that both sides are willing to contribute, and not please not to be very transactional, but to look a little bit also further and to invest also for the future. And this will help also to change the agenda in Turkey. And as business community, as we say, we are always supporting, Turkey to get closer to the EU, and we will do our best anyway to support this trust issue and upcoming agendas that that we want to discuss, and we will support this. This is what I can say from business perspective.
May I, Ambassador?
Yes, please.
No, only to say that I'm completely happy to listen Zeynep, because for us the accession process is the jewel of the crown, is the real stuff, is the real thing, and I try to be more humble, to try to be more realistic in the way what could be the folders to start with. But of course, I think that the jewel of the crown is the accession process and the candidacy and the membership. And I'm completely happy to see that Zeynep is proud to maintain this flag into the Turkish society, to remind the people this European fatigue can't overcome our willing to become a member of the European Union. I think this is an excellent idea, and of course I support that to try to open some chapters. I think it's not realistic for the coming, I don't know, couple of years or 1 year. You never know, but I agree that this is the real goal that the Turkish society has to recommit with. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think that I can agree with both of you that both sides need to remember that Turkey is a candidate country. Now I'd like to open the floor to questions from our viewers, and there's a couple of questions already in place, and they are mostly addressed to you, Senor Sánchez. Let me read them to you. Maybe you can take them 2 or 3 at a time. One is coming with regard to the Green Deal, and the question is that could it be used as a catalyst in the customs union, Green Deal? Also with regard to IPA funding, would that continue under the circumstances, or will it be cut? And the last question in this session, there are many others that will be coming, is does the EU have a Turkey policy? And what are the main objectives of this policy? So I'll stop here because there are some others, but I'll get to them later on.
Yeah, I think the Green Deal and that kind of policies, energy, that kind of policies, not in the core of our quarrels, are an excellent catalyst to try to as Zeynep said, to be competitive in the world, to try to approach the very exigent standards that Europe and Turkey has, because we have a customs union. I think this could be a catalyst. I think we have to build on things that are realistic, that could be a win-win solutions, and that helps to rebuild the trust. I think Green Deal and the other things, digital, Green Deal, that kind of policies in which we are not in opposite fronts, could help to revamp a real agenda of mutual interest, and then to regain trust. And we say the IPA funding is going to continue because Turkey is a candidate country. What the Parliament did in the past years, it was to reduce the IPA funds because the lack of delivery of Turkey in reforms related to the accession process. Well, the IPA funding is closely related to the accession process. If there is progress in the accession process, you have to you have the grounds to receive more IPA funding, because there were no progress in the accession process. The Parliament decides to cut drastically the IPA funds and maintain some IPA funds to civil society, and trying to reduce the scope of our programs with Turkish authorities. Of course, there are some programs, there are agricultural programs, rural development, others, but the question is the Parliament decided to cut because there was no progress in the accession process, and the IPA funding is related to the progress in the accession process. The problem I raised in the very beginning of my participation was, does European Union has a policy with Turkey? No, there is different approaches depending on the institutions, and of course there is different approaches depending on the member states. You know perfectly that the position of Mrs. Merkel and Germany are different than Mr. Macron and France. But this is normal in our way of acting. But the question I have to send to your playing field: are you really committed with your renewed European bet? Because if you are, you have to conduct reforms that allows us, every one of us, to reopen chapters in the accession process. And this is on you. This is not on us. As Zeynep said, the accession process is a normative one. It's not transactional. We can transact on the values. You have to approach our values, interests, and policies, respecting, of course, with respect of your sovereignty. But if you want to be a member, you have to approach it in that kind of thing. And what is the lack of policy? The lack of policy, I repeat, is the Council is more keen to address Turkey irrespectively of the accession process, and the Parliament is always pushing the whole European Union to take care and to take into account the progress or the lack of progress in the field of rule of law and European Union. What our interlocutor could be asking for is the question of the European sincerity. And this is a question I raised in my report. And I state clearly, if Turkey finally decide to launch the reform, finally approach our values, finally fulfill the benchmarks, can't appear a kind of identity, religious and cultural veto at the end of the road. And this is our sincerity. We have to be very sincere, because now it's easy, because Turkey is not delivering. Nobody takes care of the last steps of the process. But we have to be clear on that. If Turkey delivers, we have to deliver our commitment. And we have to send a clear message to Turkey. If you abide to your commitment, in any way could appear at the end of the process a kind of cultural, religious, or identity or identitarian veto. This is my position. Thank you.
Thank you, Senor Sánchez. Questions are coming to you again. I'd like to read this second one. You mentioned the case of the Volkswagen's decision to withdraw. And the question is, do you think it was because of the political tension between Turkey and the EU, or just because of the judicial situation? That's one question. The second question is basically, I think, an academic one, because it mentions, the membership of Southern Cyprus to the EU. And I think they're asking is, basically, was this correct? And I think that maybe is something that you would have to answer personally, because it's already done. Another question is, there was a report by Kadir Has University, basically taking a poll about the Turkish attitudes. And the population was asked, how do you support the decision to join the EU? It was around 70% in 2014. And it has decreased exponentially. But again, maybe it's not in the question, but when you ask people, where do you want to live? Where do you want to go? They say they want to go to the EU. So this is a contradiction in Turkey. So these are the questions I'd like to ask you, or, statements.
Yeah. Well, in Volkswagen stated clearly that even if the CEO of Volkswagen was more keen to go, the bodies of the company decided not to go. And they expressed clearly it was because the rule of law. This was explained that way. Okay, the rule of law is not about the worries I have in the parliament, but the rule of law for Volkswagen is the legal certainty, is the not mingling with the judiciary from the political power and that kind of things. The transparency in the public procurement. This is the kind of rule of law a company asks for. Could be slightly different from the kind of rule of law a politician could but it's the same. You are suffering the consequences of this legal uncertainty for the companies. I remember what happened with Kosa IPEC in the year 15. I was in Turkey. I met the people of Kosa IPEC holding in Ankara. In the very day they received the news of the company, the holding was seized, and that kind of thing is can be simply because you are frightening the investment and the figures of the foreign investment in Turkey have not plummeting, but having suffered a loss. I'm not sure about the question on Southern Cyprus, because I know what the main problem among us is the question of Cyprus. That is a very important question for Turkey and for the European Union, of course.
No,
but
in your opinion, was this correct? Because normally, according to our interpretation, if Turkey and Greece are not members of an institution, then Cyprus should not be there as well. That was our legitimate concern, and we raised this. But this was overruled, and Cyprus became a member, half of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, in your personal opinion, do you think this was a correct move or not?
Yes, I think it could be better. It would be better if we have solved the issue before, but we can simply say no because there is no prospect of having a final solution on the situation of the island. And there was not the best solution, but it was a good solution to have Cyprus into the European Union, despite the problem, because if not, there was a kind of external veto for a country not to enter the European Union. I think Turkey, in any way, could have had a kind of veto on the entrance of Cyprus in the European Union. Of course, the best solution, the best situation could have been, let's solve the issue before entering. But if not, there was no reasons to maintain Cyprus outside the European Union, because the fact of the de facto division of the island. I'm always astonished how the Turkish society the European values of the European way of life, if you prefer not to talk about big words, how the Turkish society adhere to the European way of life, despite the rhetoric they have been received for years of the double standards in Europe. Europe is not abiding. Europe is not paying. Europe is always at the verge of a final crisis. For me, it's miraculous that the public opinion in Turkey could show that resilience. And that means something. Even though that kind of narrative, that kind of rhetoric against the European Union, a big part of the Turkish society, finally, at the end, it prefers a kind of society that the European Union represents. And from my side, I would like to have you all as my comrades and friends into the European Union. But if finally there is no solution, at least let's have a very conducive, friendly, and functional relation. Because as Mr. Borrell said, we are not changing geography. You always are going to be a neighbor, and a powerful and respected neighbor. Let's deal with the issue. I personally prefer you into the European Union. But anyway, let's find a way to have a more fruitful and functional relation. This is the key question for the moment.
Yeah, on Cyprus, just one clarification. I don't want to prolong the discussion, but you probably remember the referendum that took place in 2004, in which the Turkish side said yes and the Greek side said no. And that's one of the reasons why there is some mistrust towards the EU, because the Turkish side was promised that they would not be isolated anymore, but the EU could not deliver. So this is one of the areas, of course, that mistrust is built on. The next question is for Mrs. Zeynep Bodur Okyay. It says, has there been a rise of Euro-centric businesses working towards the promotion of European values? Or is there a hard line between business and politics among the Turkish business elite as of yet?
Yes. Actually, still as business community, we try to promote in Turkey, still the relation between EU and Turkey, so and European values, because as business community, we do business everywhere, and of course we have to stick with international values. So therefore, it's been part of this process. Actually, you know, after customs union, you know, the accession of Turkey to the EU. So we always support this. Yes, there have been very difficult very difficult times still. You know, there's a lot of much to do. It's always not easy, of course, for the business community also to contribute all the time to those values. But you know, we want to stay where we are and try to keep the positive agenda, and try to also do our utmost. You know, like for example, myself, you know, being in NGOs, we like to work towards a more positive talk between the parties. So yes, there was a decline, you know, in business community as well, you know, talking about these issues, etc. But this, the reason also was that we had some difficulty to understand, as I mentioned before, what would be the relations between Turkey and the Euro, seeing all these comments and transactional issues put forward, you know, in every dialogue. So this was creating a noise from our side, but we always have the hope, and we try to stick on the agenda. And from a business point of view, we try to push and talk with our counterparts, try to explain our position, and we are very committed also to the accession of Turkey to the EU. So this is what I can say so far.
Senor Sánchez, there's a quick question for you. What are the chances of the EU to consider having direct communication with the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which would acknowledge political leverage, and if not, not full recognition, but at least some kind of communication? What are the chances for that?
I think very few on that way, because Cyprus is the member of the European Union, and in our rationale is the whole Cyprus, not as it is in de facto, but it was in the law. I think the whole island is member of the European Union, because we don't recognize the legitimacy of the occupation, if you want to say that way, of the north part. But the only way to overcome this issue, in our way, I know that the new rationale of the government, and is a question that has been raised in the council, is the new strategy on two separate states. I think this is deepening the difficulties. This is not being conducive, in my view. I think the only way, and it's a hard way, and we all know that it's a difficult way, is to try to settle the issue in the frame of the United Nations resolutions. This is the thing that we have endorsed in the past, and we keep endorsing now, despite the recent drift in the Turkish position to try to put on the table the two-state solution. We don't think that that could be a real solution, and this is deepening. This is deepening the mistrust, and this is deepening the situation, and other things like what happened in Barossa in the beach. This is not of help in this situation. But for us, you have to understand that Cyprus is a member state of the European Union. For that thing, I always say we can be a honest broker, because sometimes President Erdogan said European Union has to be an honest broker. No, sorry, we are in one side of the table. We are in the side of Cyprus and Greece, because European Union is Cyprus and Cyprus is the European Union. We are not a third part, and you have to understand that this is our rationale, and we can play as a third part, as a honest broker. Of course, we are doing our best to try to settle the issue, to try to help a solution in the frame of the United Nations. I would ask to Turkey to try to not to abandon the idea of the solution in the frame of the United Nations, but this is our position, and you have to understand this is not easy to change, because Cyprus as a whole, as a country, is a member of the European Union.
Well, I totally agree with you that the EU cannot be an honest broker, because you are a side, as you said. Cyprus.
Not because we are not honest, because we are not the third part.
Yes,
because
exactly.
we are not the third part here.
Next question is to Zeynep Hanım. It's with regard to the dispute settlement mechanism. The question is, what's going on with this? What are the problems with regard to this, and how are we going to solve this? In the customs union.
I don't see the question. Where is the question?
It's at 847. It says Gümrük Birliği'ndeki dispute settlement mechanism arasındaki tam olarak yaşanan problem nedir? Bu problemde sürdürülebilir bir çözüm nasıl olmalıdır? 2019'dan beri anlaşmazlıkların çözümü için iki tarafın da bir araya gelmediği biliniyor.
I saw another question there about this the rule of law, but I didn't see the other one.
Well, if you don't want to answer that, of course, you know, we can pass that on. So there is a question saying that could there be rule of law when separation of powers disappears? If not, what perceptions would prevail in the EU, and how does the Turkish business community see this conundrum?
Okay, so thank you for the question. Actually, it would be realistic to expect the upholding of the rule of law if separation of powers cease. But for the perspective of the business community, for us, stability is important, and of course, security is another important issue, and predictability is very essential for the business community. To be honest, I'm not in the place to tell what perceptions would prevail in the EU, but I know the EU would prefer a Turkey in line with its acquis, and this is important. So if Turkey works towards Europeanization, then things would be positive. Of course, so it's not easy question to answer. We'll see what the future will bring. But of course, as a business community, we always underline the importance of our relationship with the EU as a whole, and the stability, security issues, and the new issues that are on the horizon, and the predictability. So we also advise this to the Turkish government. Also, we expect the same approach from the European Parliament and the counterparts vis-a-vis Turkey. So this is what I believe is important, and that would be my answer.
Senor Sánchez, I have a very easy question for you. Is religion an impediment for Turkey to join the EU?
Not at all, because there are different approaches in Europe towards religion. There are countries that are traditionally Catholic, like to be Poland or Spain. There are others that are laïc, and laicism is one of the key issues, for example, in France. Our approach to religion is completely open, I have to say, like the Ottoman Empire was, irrespectively of the religion of the people covered by the Ottoman Empire in the past. This is not an issue for the most part of our stakeholders. Of course, there is the extreme right always using this anti-Turkish narrative. More than anti-Turkish is Islamophobic narrative. But because we talk a lot about, but this is real Islamophobia is a trend in the extreme right. The extreme right had enjoyed a strong position, now apparently is losing ground in Europe, and I'm happy to see how this approach is losing ground in every country of the European Union. But this is the only part of Europe, extreme right parties, because the Islamophobia that consider an issue, the religion. The main stakeholders, there are not. This is not a question. We never. There are people say that the European Union is a Christian project. There's a lot of discussion of that. I think it's more related to the Roman law than on the Christian public moral. But always has been a kind of academic discussion. It never has been a real leverage or a real dividing line in Europe. This is not going to be a question in the future.
Yeah, thank you. We're almost at the end of our program, but before we do so, I'd like to ask Senor Sánchez one last question. Actually, a comment and a question. I mean, the EU has always complained to Turkey about, the backsliding and the rule of law, etc. There's one test that the EU has not used for Turkey. Now, if you probably remember, I don't know if many people have that in mind, but there's chapters 23 and 24, which are related to justice, fundamental rights, human rights, all of that. And these two chapters have been blocked by Southern Cyprus for some time now. And Turkey has always insisted that these should be opened. We are ready to open them and work on them. So this is a very simple test, actually, with regard to building up trust. If the EU had opened or can open these two chapters, then we could proceed and the EU could see if Turkey is actually sincere about fulfilling its human rights action plan. So wouldn't you be able to at least push for these two chapters to be opened, Senor Sánchez?
First, we repeat that we have to regain trust. Second, in my view, the problem is Turkey has been backsliding in that kind of issue for the last, not only after the coup, let's say after Gezi, but the question is a little bit tricky. Why don't we open the chapters, and into the discussion of the chapter, we assess what is the sincerity of the reforms? The other view is, guys, you have to conduct the reforms. You have to pass from the paper, the judiciary reform 3 years ago, the human rights action plans some weeks ago. You have to pass from the paper to the facts. And when we assess the facts, we could eventually open the chapters. And we are in the second position, because this has not been only a moment, because Turkey is not the same Turkey that had to deal with the closing of the chapters. I have to say, unlikely, Turkey has backsliding in the human rights and rule of law issues after this period. We can come back as if Gezi, the purge, the crash on the opposition, the difficulties for the journalists, that things happened, and we can't turn a blind eye on that. For that reason, we ask to assess the sincerity of the reforms and to pass from the muse to the theater, we say in Spain, from the paper to the facts, and then we could assess the sincerity of the willing of reforms in that part. But I think what happened in last Saturday with Istanbul Convention is not of help in any way. You have, not you, sorry, the Turkish government has upset the half of the population in Europe. Well, let's say that a quarter of the population in Poland could be in a different position. But this is not about journalists. That are a small group of professionals. This is not about academicians. This is not about LGTB. This is about the women, and has been perceived like a direct aggression to the rights. And there is that triggered an enormous wave of solidarity with Turkish women. I don't know if Turkish government assesses properly what could have been the reaction. Not bad, because if you read the position of the council, but this has been very damaging to the test of the sincerity of the reforms already.
Well, I can always very easily say that it has disappointed not only half of Turkey, but almost 90% of Turkey with regard to that issue. We're coming to the end of our program, and before we conclude, I'd like to ask our guests whether they would like to say any last words before we sign off. Zeynep, would you like to say any few words?
Yes, as we mentioned before, regaining trust is important, but I don't agree completely on the point that both sides have lost trust in each other. So I believe that we have shared many important points about Turkey vis-a-vis the EU issues. For me, the main outcome of our discussion is that there is still a lot of commitment and resilience between each other. A reflection of this was the latest summit, where some promises were made and a door left open to increase our cooperation. So I think we should enter from that door. And I would like to make an open call to Mr. Sánchez Amor and the Parliament from here that, the Lisbon Treaty has given a lot of powers to the European Parliament that are yet to be used more effectively and are actually very promising in bringing the Parliament closer to the people. So I received Mr. Sánchez Amor's words on the accession process positively. Indeed, instead of, as he said, cherry picking, we all should be working in accelerating the process through some other issues, let's say Green Deal cooperation or customs union modernization, and issues that really matters to the business community. Yes, we talk about a lot about trust, and this is very essential. Without trust, we cannot go further. I know it should come from both sides. Here, high-level dialogues are essential, as we all mentioned, and high-level dialogues must be maintained also between EU and Turkey. We should also engage low and mid-level dialogues between governments and should encourage other stakeholders like business community, for example, in the relationships to increase their engagement with their counterparts. So we are very much willing to do that, and we hope to achieve that as the Turkish business community maintain dialogue with the European businesses and EU and Turkish government officials and the civil society. So we are eager to contribute in each side, and obviously, as always, we will continue to work for Turkey's goal of EU membership. We all believe that Turkey's future is in Europe, and I believe that also Europe's future is very much related with Turkey. Turkey is not any country; it's a very important country, and sharing, the same geography and sharing some common values as well is always important. So believe that from both sides, we should a little bit push more and keep the agenda alive. That's what I would like to see, and I wish for the future. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Senor Sánchez,
Yes,
as a Raportör, we hope so in Turkey.
Yes,
so
thank you.
Last words.
Zeynep said to maintain alive the agenda. I think one of the main goals, the people who really believe that Turkey could be and have to be a member of the European Union, is to maintain alive the accession process, because there is a growing movement into the European Parliament saying, okay, we are done with the accession process. This is not function, this is not realistic. Let's deal with Turkey in the other issues, like a third country, like other neighbor, with the scale, with the importance of Turkey, but like a third country. I think this has to be a goal to any of the person committed to the approach of Turkey to the European Union. To fail in the accession process, I think it could be an option from the political point of view, but it's very damaging, I think, for Europe and for Turkey, in my view, because I have to say, Omer, my dear friend, knows very well, I do really love your country. Sometimes there is the idea that any European politician is a kind of a guy that can see the country as it is. I love Turkey. When I say I love Turkey, I'm not talking about to walk in Istanbul. I'm talking about Erzurum and çok kebab. I'm talking about your mining. I'm talking about your industries. I'm talking about the people that I appreciate a lot, because this is as a Mediterranean, I feel myself at home talking to you all, and I see things in Turkey. I know I'm never going to be in Sweden, because when I visited Istanbul, I went to the Omer father's house to have a tea. Well, that kind of thing is the thing I really appreciated on Turkey, and I do really want to use my experience and my position to try to help and to put the relation on tracks, and really to regain trust, as we have repeatedly stated today, and from both parts. And sometimes you are right, you have to encounter a more empathic way on the other side, but there is a lot of prejudices, and there is a lot of misunderstanding, and there is a lack of knowledge of what your country really is. And I think this people-to-people communication, the university programs, the business community, the former diplomats, that you have a role to do. We do the active politicians, but I do really hope this is an obscure period, but like this recent film, the darkest hours is the hour exactly before the sun could rise, and I do really hope that this could be the situation that we live. I use the past in this period to try to regain a more shining period in our relation. Thank you, Omer. Thank you, Ambassador General. Thank you, Zeynep. It's a pleasure to see you. And thank you. I do really hope to see you there personally.
Hopefully, yes. We planned several times to come, to discuss with you many issues, but unfortunately. So if you can solve the vaccine problem, we can come, But now it's difficult. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, distinguished speakers. And I'd like to thank the audience for sticking with us on this Sunday evening. And you mentioned that the sun, now that we are in summertime in Europe, we haven't changed our hours, but at least Europe has done. Now we're an hour closer to each other. Yes, and we hope to get closer even more. This is an issue that will go on for a long, long time. But we hope that we'll be having less and less harsh rhetoric and more positive rhetoric. Thank you once again for being with us this evening. We hope to be able to be together at another event. And so stay safe and be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Gladly. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.